Hey everybody, JJ here. Back again with another Wednesday of Zoom networking. And, I'm always excited about these Zoom calls. We just got phenomenal people on here all the time. The young man we have today is no exception. This young man is one of Pace Morby's rising jet rocket rock stars in the community. If you're in Pace Morby's community, you don't know this guy, who this young man is. Either you're brand new or you live under a rock. But we're talking about Pace Morby. Pace Morby, for those of you that don't know him, he is the premier genius in creative real estate finance in the country today, which means in the world. And Pace's Sub2 community is the premier real estate education platform in the country, bar none. Our guest speaker today is a young man who started as a student, became an entrepreneur, businessman, family man, just really all around great guy. My good friend, Mr. Mike Gomes. Mike, how are you?
What up, bro? Dude, you know what everybody needs in their life? Everybody needs a pump up guy. Like they need somebody in their life to really just pump them up and give them some life. And that's what JJ does. JJ is like the ultimate pump up guy. If you need some pump up, go have a conversation with JJ. Thank you, bro. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you, brother. We've talked many times. We've met. We've sat down face to face. I've had the pleasure to meet your lovely wife. We talked about this just the other day. You are so impressive. We all get into real estate from different paths. We all come up through different avenues. We all have different challenges. But you are just so steadfast in maintaining your integrity and your character and your presence, and you're so consistent with just the level of quality of how you present yourself that it's something that's not as common throughout the real estate community, something I don't see very often. You're one of the few that are truly a shining star. I'm honored to call you my friend.
I appreciate that, bro. Pace Morby says this a lot. He says your vibe attracts your tribe. So there's no by no mistake that we are friends. Appreciate you, bro.
So much. Hey, really quick, for those that don't know you, where in the country are you located?
I'm in Boston, Massachusetts.
Boston, man. You guys got a football team over there, I'm told.
Bro, we stink now. We don't want to talk about it. Like Tom Brady left. Tom Brady left, and I stopped being a football fan. Put it that way.
But you have the Patriots and, of course, the Celtics and the Red Sox and great sport teams up there. Here I'm wearing my Chicago Blackhawks, got my hockey shirt on today.
Okay.
Yeah. So, we're talking about real estate. That's our commonality. We've met through Pace's community. Everybody gets a different start to real estate. We don't all start at the same time. We don't have the same opportunity. We don't all start the same way. I kind of, for the most part, take things back to when I'll just say, becoming adults. We're driving at 16, we're voting at 18, depending upon our state. When we're 21, we can go into a bar and order a beer, a glass of wine or something. When you were in your teens, say going into your 20s, let's call it high school, whatever. Were you exposed to real estate? Was mom an agent? Was dad a contractor? Was it something that you were around in your youth? Or if not, what were you doing?
This is a good question. So my grandmother was like the poppin' realtor in town back in the day. And I used to go to all of her listings, like, because she was the one that kind of took care of me on the weekends sometimes. So she would drag me to her listings. That's where I think my real estate started. To be honest, I don't really remember it. But here's how I got started in real estate. First things first, I got introduced to it pretty much by one of those 2-day seminars, right? No, it was like a 3-day seminar. Actually, one of the communities that you just talked about earlier. I go to this event. First event was like 2 hours. They get you to go into the 3-day workshop. I go to the 3-day workshop and I learn about real estate. So a seed was kind of planted in my mind. Throughout that time, I was probably about maybe 21 years old when that happened. I didn't do anything with real estate, really. I've been a hustler my whole life. I've never had a real job. I've just always been an entrepreneur that did a bunch of different hustles. Okay. One of the things I used to do when I was younger is I used to work as a laborer for my father. He's a plasterer and drywaller, and he does a lot of work for fix and flippers. So I remember when I was like ready to get into real estate, like finally I was ready to be like, okay, I had this information from 5 years back when I went to that seminar. I need to know more and I need to get into the trenches. I simply just contacted somebody that my father knew who was a fix and flipper who he did a lot of work for. And I just made homies with him. I brought him value in the beginning. I was like, hey, bro, I'd love to hang out with you. Whatever you need at your projects, I'm here. I'm free. I can labor for you, whatever the case is. I literally went to Homeboy's house that he lives in, did some demo. And from there, our relationship started. And he just kind of started teaching me the fix and flip game and just real estate in general. And that's how I got into the game. So I kind of been in like around real estate my whole entire life, but I never really was into the weeds until I was like just about to leave college or kind of left college.
So where'd you go to college?
Worcester State University.
Now, what did you study? Just out of curiosity, was it medicine, law?
Absolutely nothing. I didn't study anything. um,
GE then, general education.
right, exactly. No, this is what I did. I had no idea what I wanted to do when I got out of high school. So I went to my high school coach and I'm like, hey, what the heck do I do? You know me out of everybody. He was like my father. He pretty much raised me. And I'm like, you know me the best out of everybody. What the heck should I do in my life? He's like, Mike, you love football. So just go to school, play football, and become a football coach at some point. Looking back at it, I'm not saying that it was the worst advice ever, but it ended up leading me to go to college and I didn't really do anything with it. Now I think everything happens for a reason. I got a bunch of relationships from college and everything like that. But I get into college and I talked to all the football people on the football team. And my simple question was, yo, what is the easiest subject to do? I don't care about it. I'm probably never going to use it. I just need to get through this school with flying colors. And all I want to do is play football because I'm just going to become a coach at the end of the day. And they were like health education, which is like pretty much this major that allows you to be a gym teacher. And I was like, all right, sign me up. So that was a goal. But throughout college, I was always hustling. I used to be a barber, so I'd always cut people's hair in the dorm rooms and everything like that. So I've always been a hustler, and that kind of was my transformation once I got out of college. So my whole life before college and in college was football, and then I get out of college, and I'm like, gosh, what the heck do I do? I'm done with football. I don't know what to do with my life. And essentially all my time and energy that I was putting into football got put into being a hustler and entrepreneurship in general.
Yeah, yeah. No, you know what I love about that story is besides football, I want to be a coach myself. I love kids, but when you were working and hustling and going to that guy's house and asking what you could do, that's networking. That's building. Mm-hmm. So even from the beginning, and you've got that personality, I think that's just phenomenal. Obviously you've got drive, obviously you got personality, and that's 85% of the challenge right there is, a lot of people don't have drive, a lot of people don't have personality, but when you've got both of them together, it just makes it a little bit easier to get that last 15%. So, coming out of college, how soon? How'd you fall into real estate? Did you fall right into Sub 2 from going to school, or was there a couple stops before you got into Sub 2?
Yeah. So I tried doing this business by myself for way too dang long. I was bashing my head against the wall, trying to build a wholesaling business through learning on YouTube and having this guy that I hung out with maybe once a week or something like that. That's pretty much what I was trying to do. And for 7 months straight, I was pouring into marketing, right? So I had other side hustles that I'm not really going to talk about right now, but I had other side hustles while I was doing this. And I was using those side hustles to build my wholesaling business because I needed to get out of those side hustles. They were not good for me. So I pretty much tried to get out of those side hustles by dumping money into a wholesaling business and making the business work, but it just was not working. For 7 months straight, I'm here bashing my head against the wall, learning on YouTube, trying to generate leads, doing all the things. Like pretty much I was doing everything in wholesaling, but mastering nothing, right? And it just led to me not having any traction. So finally, 7 months into me doing that, I kind of built a nice little lead generation system with my virtual assistant up to that point, but I still wasn't doing any deals, spending a bunch of money. And then I finally get into Pace's group. And the first day that I get on a Zoom chat with Pace, this is literally the first day that I'm in the mentorship. He's like, bro, you got a good thing going. Like this lead generation thing that you got going is pretty good. Why are you not getting deals? How come you're not making money? I'm like, I don't know, dog. That's why I hired you. Right. So then I end up, he ends up telling me, dude, it sounds like you just got to get better at talking to sellers. He said, go do everything and anything you could potentially do to get better at sellers, to get better at talking to sellers. And I guarantee you, you will start doing deals. And I'm like, all right, I might as well listen to the guy that knows what the heck he's doing. So I took the next 6 to 12 months of my life learning everything about sales. Like I took a bunch of sales courses, read a bunch of sales book, took a bunch of action, practiced, recorded myself, like just dug deep on getting better at talking to sellers. And then once I did that, I pretty much created a business around my system. So JJ, this is what happens, right? I end up getting my first deal in 3 weeks of joining Pace's group. And it literally was because I started to understand how to talk to sellers and lock up contracts. And then I just started doing that repetitively over and over and over again. And as I was doing it, I'm like, I know what I'm doing is like a system, but I can't really explain it. So I sat down and I really just thought about what my process was, because I pretty much was taking bits and pieces of all the different sales books I was reading and all the different mentors I had and everything like that. And I was taking bits and pieces of everything that made sense for me. And I was putting it into a sales system. And then once I finally, after like 6 or 12 months, sat down and I was like, dang, this is exactly what I do with every single seller from step 1 to step 100. Like I know exactly what to do now and I can put it on paper. And the coolest part about it is I can take this system and teach people. So I took the system and I started teaching people, which was my team. And I just built my business around those people, around the process that I built myself. Does that make sense?
Very much so.
And that has been the heartbeat. It's not the only thing that I do at the moment. But that direct to seller wholesaling business that is revolved around me talking to sellers is like my main bread and butter. That has been my thing that has produced the most contracts. So it's like I went out, figured out how to talk to sellers, built a system around it. And now I have a business, a wholesaling business that produces anywhere between 50 and 100K a month without me having to really work in it. I work in the wholesale business maybe 1 or 2 hours a day, and my team just takes everything that I taught them and they hammer it. I cannot say thank you enough to my team. Like my team is, oh my gosh, it's been really, really cool to see what they have done. I put it this way, in the past like year, I have done nothing in my wholesaling business. They've done it all. So I'm so grateful for them. But yeah, bro, that's how I started.
Well, let me ask you a little bit about your team. Are these people that have come across your path via Sub2, or you've gone out and recruited people to assist you? Did you look for them?
Multiple different ways. Like a little bit more than half of my team consists of virtual assistants. So, you know, all of the lead generation department, that's all virtual assistants. And then we have 3 departments. The first department is lead generation. Second department is lead management, like following up with leads. And then the third department is our sales department. So the first 2 departments are ran pretty much by all virtual assistants. The second department is ran by people in the States. And the way that I've found those people, and this is one of the things you guys probably want to write down, is just by putting value out into the marketplace and somebody seeing, oh my gosh, Mike has all this value. I would love to hang out with him and figure out what the heck it is that he's got going on and provide some value to him. And that's literally how I've grown my team. So the sales department consists of people that just ended up DMing me or, giving me a call or whatever the case is and coming on the team. Actually, one cool thing, I'll say this really quick. One of my sales guys, I got him. This is how he ended up on my team. I sent out like a massive list on one of the Massachusetts Facebook groups, right? It was a skip trace list. I'm like, hey, wholesalers, I want to help y'all. Here's a 10,000 prospect skip trace list. Go create some problems. Come to me if you have any questions. One dude, it was literally like one dude on the whole entire post, replied on it and was like, hey, this is amazing, bro. Thank you so much. Da, 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 da. We ended up connecting via DM, and he kept coming back to me like for probably 2 months straight with problems. Like, hey, bro, I have this seller that needs help. I have this seller that needs help. And I'm just like talking to his sellers all day. And all of a sudden I was just like, bro, do you want to just come on the team? And he's like, yeah. So that's how one of our sales reps got started. So it really all it is putting out value and it coming back. There's a law in the universe, and this is whether you believe in God, don't believe in God, like whatever it is. This is literally like just a law in the universe. Whatever you plant will come to life somewhere else. So all the seeds that you were sowing will be reaped somewhere else, which is really cool. That's why I just literally on my job, JJ, is to just go around all day planting seeds. And those seeds, I just want to have like plant seeds of value every single place that I can go. And if I do that, I just know that there's going to be a forest. And the idea is not to try to like build the forest, right? I'm not planting the seeds in mind of, hey, I want something in return. It's just, I know that that's my job. My job is just to plant seeds. I'm at the grocery store. Let me plant some seeds somewhere. Let me pay for somebody's groceries. I'm at the gas station. I see somebody with a frown. Let me introduce myself in a way that makes them smile, right? It's just planting seeds everywhere, and that is going to come to life somewhere else.
I love this, man. I love this. I talk all the time about just engaging people, no matter where you are. My niece will be out with her someplace, and she said, "Do you know that person?" And I'm like, "No." She goes, "You talk to them?" Oh yeah, you know. We're very similar in that regard. I love your analogy about planting seeds because with what I do, I'm constantly talking to people and constantly I like think giving value, but I call it building my business to building relationships. But you're so on base, brother. It's so awesome. So Mike, tell me, brother. You spoke to Pace probably on that right when you started. When did you first meet Pace? We all know Pace. We all love Pace. Pace rocks, and now that Sub2's growing as large as it is, he's got to literally run around the country and try and get out and make sure people can meet him and he could see everybody and work his magic. But when did you first meet Pace, and how did that go?
Gosh, Pace is that's so funny. I had my pastor in the office today, and I was telling him about Pace because he was like, dude, I need to buy a property. I need to buy a 2-family, and I don't have any good credit and stuff like that, or whatever he said. He just didn't have the credentials, and he wants to buy properties without any of that. So I'm like, bro, you can buy a house without, having any credentials or your own cash or anything like that. He's like, really? I'm like, yes, bro, you can. And I start going into the weeds and like explaining subject to and stuff like that. And I was like, actually, who can explain this much better to you is my guy Pace. This is actually my mentor. And he's in my office, right? Sitting there just scrolling and looking at every single one of Pace's videos for probably like a good 5 minutes. And I'm like, oh, he's caught. So Pace is the GOAT when it comes to creative finance, everything. Like, he's the man. I cannot talk enough about him. Back in, this is when his mentorship first started. I was like one of the first 1,000 people in there. I think there's like 12,000 people in there now. So I was in there in the very beginning, which is probably like 2.5, 3 years ago or something like that. Like I told you, I hopped on a call with him with one of the Q&As. He does Q&As every single week where you can hop in and try to talk to him. Now there's so many people in the mentorship, it's hard to actually talk to him. But in the beginning, it was real easy to just raise your hand and be the first one in the Zoom and boom, you get your question answered. So I did that like the first day. And as I kept moving, here's pretty much what I did, JJ. I would go ask Pace a question, go take a bunch of action, run into a bunch of problems, and then come back a month or two later with more questions. And that's all I did for like a good year. And then in person, I think it was like maybe 6 or 7 months of me go in that mentorship. I ended up flying out to his mastermind, and that's the first time I met him in person. I'm now in masterminds that he's a part of. You're in that mastermind as well. And it's been really cool.
Mr. Shane McGrath, you are on with Mike Gomes. What's your question, my friend?
Hey, Mike. Hey, JJ. Hey,
What up, big dog?
hey. So my question is in relation to this process that you've created, the 8-step process. We're doing a lot of direct to seller at the moment. There's like waiting for a text message and, all that excitement and energy that comes with it. I'd love to hear more about the 8-step process, to be able to break it down and feel like we've got systems in place. So is there anything you can shed a light on there?
Yeah, 100%. JJ, I don't know where you're going with the call. If we have time to do that, I did plan on kind of breaking down the 8-step sales process if we have the time to do that, but it's up to you.
You know what, Shane? Thank you so much, brother. I'm gonna hand the mic to Michael here and let him just run with the answer to your question. Okay.
Awesome.
Well, JJ, appreciate you so much, bro. Again, you are the freaking man. Shane, to answer your question, yes, this 8-step sales process, I'm going to pour into you guys as much as possible. JJ, how much time we got?
Brother, we got as much time as you want to go. You got some gold nuggets to drop. People want to hear about the process.
Okay, love it. Well, in about 30 minutes, I'm going to try to sum up as much as possible what the 8-step sales process is about. It's not going to be enough time, I will tell you that, but I will pour in as much information as possible. So here's the deal. For some people might be listening. They might be like, Mike, I don't even understand what the heck you're talking about, this wholesaling thing or whatever. Most people in here probably do if you guys are in real estate, but wholesaling is pretty much just going out to homeowners, getting them under contract as if you are buying the property, and then taking that contract and shopping it out to a fix and flipper or a buy and hold investor that's going to pay you a fee in order to perform on that contract, right? So if I go to JJ and JJ owns a house, I say, hey, JJ, I'll give you $100,000 for the property. And JJ says, yes, we get married in an agreement as if Mike is buying JJ's house. Then Shane comes along and says, hey, Mike, I see you have this contract with JJ for $100,000. I'm willing to pay $120,000 for JJ's property. Let me pay you $20,000 and I will just take the contract that you have and I'll perform on it and I will buy the house. So that's pretty much all we do. And our job, my whole entire business that I was just explaining to you guys, is surrounded on going out to the sellers directly and getting them under contract. So we don't really deal with the buyer side at all or anything like that. We just mainly focus on producing contracts, right? So that's what that is. So when we break wholesaling down, right, especially this is what we call acquisition wholesaling, what I'm talking about, us just going out and getting contracts. We break it down into two sectors. The first sector is marketing. The second sector is sales. So marketing is the easiest freaking thing in the world. And people make it so complicated and so hard, but I promise you, I could teach you on a Zoom in an hour or two, and that's all you would need to know, and you would be able to go generate leads tomorrow. It's the easiest thing. That's what marketing is, generating leads. It's just finding people that could potentially be interested in selling their property. If you were a McDonald's, all marketing is putting a sign up with the golden arches and have it at the bottom say, hey, we have dollar cheeseburgers today. Like that's all marketing is. And all of a sudden that drives somebody to go into the driveway, right? So marketing is very, very simple. So I'm not going to take too much time on marketing today. The main way we source all of our deals is through virtual assistants. So we have people calling homeowners all day saying, hey, would you ever sell your property? And those leads then get put into our system. And then our sales team uses this process that I'm about to dig into right now. Okay. So I already kind of dug into how I got started and everything like that. But one thing I want to mention is I was talking about how I went 7 months without a deal. And I explained what my mentor Pace told me. Pace was like, bro, you have this lead thing going. Like I just explained to you guys, leads is easy, right? So he's like, these leads are coming in. You were just not converting. You got to go learn sales. So I learned on that call, my whole entire life changed. On that call, I was like, oh my gosh, I just got to learn how to bring people through a process, and I got to learn how to talk to these people, and I'll be able to sell anything. Once you can convert people into a sale, you will never be broke again in any industry. This sales process that I'm about to show you guys, you can use this in any industry, by the way. You can use it selling cars, insurance, houses, whatever. It all works. So I realized that my problem wasn't really leads. Now, to back up a little bit, leads are important. I'm not saying that they're not. I'm just saying that it's very easy to generate leads if you just simply follow a blueprint on how to generate leads. It's the easiest thing in the world. It might take a little bit of money, or it might take a little bit of time if you don't have any money. But either way, it's very, very easy to generate those leads. The hard part is converting those leads. Okay. So so I told you guys, after 7 months of me doing the business, I finally learned that it was sales is what my problem was. So I start learning sales, right? Start doing everything that I could potentially do to learn sales. I'm diving into sales books. I am learning from mentors. I'm hiring trainers. I'm doing like all the things to get better at talking to sellers. And as I'm doing this, I'm learning from a bunch of different people in a bunch of different industries on how they are operating. There's a type of sales that we call features and benefits. And there was some people that I ran into that taught that. And when I went and listened to what they were teaching, I was like, this doesn't really vibe for me. This is like when you're forcing it down somebody's throat. Like, hey, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to do. If we're talking about wholesaling, that would be forcing a cash offer down somebody's throat. Hey, you need to take this cash offer. We're gonna close in 30 days. No commissions, no closing costs. This is the best thing. And you're like forcing it down their throat. It would be very similar to a car salesman that sounds like super salesy. The craziest part is that that type of sales actually works, but you got to be like freaking relentless and ruthless with the way that you're doing it, and you just don't care. For me, that just was not for me. I'm like, man, it doesn't make much sense for me to try to force something down somebody's throat when they don't need that product. Like, I'm not going to force a Ferrari down somebody's throat when they need to go buy a Ford. It just doesn't make any sense, right? So I'm like, I need to figure out a better way of doing this. So as I start learning from a bunch of different people, I start learning that there's a type of sales that is more based on consulting, and it's more based on solving a problem rather than forcing something down somebody's throat. And once I realized that, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is exactly how I want to sell. This vibes exactly with my personality. I don't have to force something down somebody's throat. I can simply just walk into a situation, solve a problem, and get paid to do that. This is much better. So once I learned that, I'm like, okay, I need to triple down on these people that are teaching me this type of way. So as I start doing that, I start learning, I start going through the reps, and I start locking up a bunch of contracts. And I realize that I start building out my own process from all these different pieces. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. So I go out and I build out this 8-step sales process. Now, here was the craziest part. This is a seed that I'm going to kind of plant for later. As I learn the type of sales that I want to really hone in on, I realize that even the people that I'm learning from were not doing it the way that I should be doing it, right? Now, just to give a little bit of, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but to give a little bit of background, I gave my life to Jesus about a year ago, okay? And about a year ago, I start realizing that this process that I built out this 8-step sales process maybe like a year and a half, 2 years ago. But as I built this 8-step sales process out, I started learning, yes, this is a great way to sell. You have, you're walking into a situation and you're solving a problem, but there's kind of some like manipulation in it. You're lying to people a little bit. You're being kind of shady. And like I told you, like about a year ago, I gave my life to Jesus, and I'm like, man, I don't think this is what Jesus wants me to do. Like, as I'm really thinking about it, I'm like, all right, I got to change this up a little bit. So I'm going to walk you guys through the whole entire process that my team now uses, where we can pretty much walk into a situation, solve it without forcing something down somebody's throat, and do it the righteous way. I'm talking about these steps, right? Every single step that we have, I call not actually a step. I call it the bucket. I should probably rename the process to the 8-step or the 8-bucket process or something like that. But I look at all these steps that we have as buckets, right? And in order to fulfill a sale, in order to complete a whole entire contract and get something locked up, you have to fill up every single one of these buckets. So you don't have a deal until all these buckets are filled up, right? So now that we know that, we got to go figure out what these buckets are and how to fill them up. So the first bucket I'm going to talk about is our intro bucket. Okay. Now there's a couple of things that go into your intro. I actually call this intro/bonding. So this is when you first hop on the phone with a seller. By the way, just to give some background, usually this process is for leads that like have already been generated. If you are just generating leads, I suggest you having a very brief conversation with people. Like, if put it this way, if you were the one going out and generating leads and you were the one cold calling and stuff yourself, I would highly suggest just doing very brief conversations so that you could focus your time on generating leads and then spend another time during the day on following up and bringing people through a sales process, because you got to be wearing all these different hats at all times during the business. And like I said, if you guys remember back like a few minutes ago, I was talking about the 3 departments: lead generation, lead management, closing. Like, these 3 departments all need to be fulfilled during the day. So I see a lot of people cold calling and generating their own leads, and they'll hop on the phone with the seller, and all of a sudden they'll talk to that seller for an hour, and that hour will be robbed from them generating leads, if that makes sense. So I recommend people kind of taking the leads through a system, right? So usually this is how we start the leads. If you guys want a cold call script to just generate people that are interested in selling, I'll drop that cold call script in here too. Okay. So intro and bonding, this is when we get on the phone with a seller right after our VA generated the lead, or right after we got the lead from a JV partner, or right after we got it from a bandit sign or a mailer or a door knock, or whatever your way of generating leads is, because right after we get that. Immediately, I don't get too caught up on like the exact things to say, but more so of a structure. Okay. So the very first thing that I do in my intro is I listen. So I'm listening to how the seller is talking. So if they're like, "Hey, who's this?" I'm going to come in as, "Hey, this is Mike," right? My tone, you hear my tone? That's what we call mirroring. Okay. And I'm going to talk about these tools later on, but I'm going to mirror who they are and their tone. That way, if they're coming in like, "Hey, who's this?" and I come in like, "Hey, this is Mike. How you doing?" They're like, "Yo, what?" They're like caught off guard, and they don't want to. Immediately, my bonding with them is going to be cut in half, because they're like, "Ugh, I don't want to hear that voice right now. I'm just hanging out." Or maybe they might be high energy and they're like, "Hey, who is this?" And I come in, I'm like, "Hey, this is Mike. How you doing?" Or if I come in low, I'm like, "Hey, this is Mike. How you doing?" They're like, "Ugh, this guy got a terrible attitude. I don't want to talk to this guy." So match their energy immediately off the phone. So you listen and match. Okay. And you can make it whatever it is. "Hey, this is Mike. How are you? My name is Mike. You talk to my team about selling your property, da, 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 da." So that intro can be whatever, but here's the 2 important things about the intro. First thing is bonding. I always like to plant a little seed just to make them smile some sort of way. My goal, even when I'm on appointments with sellers, is immediately I try to get them to smile. So if I'm on an on-site appointment, the very first thing I do as I get up to the seller is I crack a big smile. And I want to get them to smile as well. I want to get them to start liking me and getting the feeling of like, "Hey, I want to hang out with this guy." So this is your personality, however you want to bond. Sometimes I'm literally just saying, "Hey, my day's amazing. I appreciate you for asking. It's been a long day." But anyways, something along those lines to let the person know that you are a human and that you have a personality. That's what you're trying to do with the bonding part. Okay. Right after that, I build credibility. So this is one of the most important parts of the intro. Off the jump, I want them to know that I am of a higher echelon and that they should be talking to me, right? So I'm not just going in super salesy and just like, hey, this is so-and-so from da-da-da-da-da. You ever think about selling your property? I'm not going in just like that. I'm going in as like some sort of boss. And I'm going to talk about not being a decision maker later, but I'm going in as some sort of boss. That way they're like, oh my gosh, I got the boss on the phone. I gotta hold on. That's why when I'm talking to them, when I'm telling them who I am, this is pretty much telling them who you are. You say, hey, my team told me to give you a call because you were interested in selling your property at da 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 da. I'm the guy that buys the houses in the business. I'm the guy that underwrites the deals. I'm the guy that qualifies the houses or whatever the case is. Explain who you are. So they're like, oh gosh, okay, this I got the boss on the phone. I got a decision maker. I should probably hang on tight. Okay. So that's your intro. What I'm also going to do at the end of this, I'm going to fly through this. I'm going to try to get through the rest of this here in the next like 20 minutes. But by the end of this, I'm going to give you guys a full PDF on the 8-step sales process. You'll have like a couple questions that you can ask in each step and everything like that. So I'll give that to you guys at the end. So once we crush the intro, we get into rapport. Okay. Now, a lot of people teach rapport, and you guys have probably heard the word rapport all the time. And it sounds like bonding, right? It sounds like, hey, you walk into an appointment and you see that there's a Patriots sign on there or something like that, and you start talking about the Patriots or something. You want to bond with them. That's not what rapport is. Rapport is letting somebody know that you are interested in their situation and that you're interested in helping out their situation. You're interested in learning more and seeing how you can help. So that's really what rapport is. So I'm not going into the weeds of like, oh yeah, today's great. The Patriots won. And I'm not going into a whole entire conversation about the Patriots. Like, I'm here to talk about the house, and I want to be a professional, and I want to let you know that I care about your situation. Okay. So immediately after we have the intro and we let them know who we are, we want to get right into, hey, so tell me what's going on with the property. Simply something very open-ended. And you guys are going to have a list of questions. So I'm not going to get caught up on all the questions to ask in these steps and everything like this. But your goal here is to find the motivation. Okay. Your goal is to ask something open-ended so they start talking. Let's just say I said, all right, so tell me, hey, what was going on with the property? And they start listing out, hey, well, yeah, you know, my da-da-da-da-da died, and, you know, he left me over the house, and I don't really know what to do with it. It is a lot of work that needs to be done and everything, right? You're getting the motivation on this point. While you're in this step, you are listening 70% of the time and talking 30%. So you're really not talking throughout this whole entire step. Okay. So to go back, you're asking an open-ended question to try to get the motivation. They're going to give you some information, and here's the sauce behind the rapport step. You're going to actively listen. Okay. So I'm going to listen to what they said. If they said something about, yeah, you know, my father passed away and he left the house to me, and I just don't really know what to do with it. Okay. I'm going to actively listen to that. Okay. I got a lot of information there. His father passed away. He got the house inherited to him, and he doesn't know what to do with it. Let me pick the most important information out of what he just gave me. And I'm going to ask another open-ended question to get him to elaborate on what he's talking about. Okay. So he told me the father passed away. He told me that he left the property to him and that he doesn't know what to do with it. So I'm going to acknowledge a lot of the stuff that he said. I'm going to say, oh my gosh, Rick, man, I'm so sorry that your pops died. Like, how are you holding up? I'm going to, be empathetic, right? Figure out how he's feeling about the situation and everything like that. But then I'm going to bring it back to what's most important from the information that he gave me. In this situation, he gave me the most important information is he doesn't know what to do with the house. Okay. So I got to dig deeper on that. Tell me, like, what about the house has got you kind of caught up? Right. And now we're digging into the weeds. So a lot of people will just get very surface level information. At this point, they'll move on. They'll say, hey, man, I'm so sorry about what happened to your father. Like that must be tough. When were you thinking about selling the property? And they just go right into the next step or something. And they don't take the time to really dig deep into what's really going on. And that's where we actually get the deals. Okay. So we actively listen, and then we follow up with an open-ended. Actually, we do something called we validate, and then we follow up. Okay. So validate is me saying, dang, I'm so sorry about your father. I can't imagine what you're going through. How are you holding up, man? That's tough. Well, hey, you told me that you didn't really know what to do with the property. What about the property has got you caught up? Okay. And that's a follow-up. All right. So now at this point, you should have a whole entire story of what's going on with the seller, right? I'll ask my team every single day. Me and my team hop on a sales meeting for about an hour. And this is their time to utilize me to hop on the phone with a seller, or to give them some underwriting, or to give them some advice on how to push the ball forward. And when they bring me a lead and I ask them, hey, what's the motivation? Why are they selling? And they simply just tell me, oh, they inherited a property from their father and the father died. I'm like, bro, that's not enough information. Like, I need more. I need more than that. You got to give me more. So I get them to elaborate deeper into what's going on. And you guys are going to see here in a couple of steps why that's very important. So step number 3, this is what we call the budget step. Okay. So after we figured out the whole story with what's going on with the seller, we're going to dive deep into what they want for money. But here's the most important part of the budget step. There's two major parts. You want to figure out what they want for money, not for the house itself. Okay. So let's just say you ask Mr. Seller, hey, what are you hoping to sell your house for? And they say 400K. 400K is not the number that I need. Okay. I need the number that is net in their pocket. Okay. How much money at the end of the day do you want to walk away with? And here's why this is important. Somebody is going to put an artificial number towards this piece of property right here because it's a piece of property. There's no emotional attachment to it. But let's just say you have a car that is, you owe $10,000 on this car note, and this is a Mercedes, and you have, and it's worth $20,000. Okay. So you have a $10,000 car note. It's a Mercedes. You could put it on Craigslist and make $20,000. When you're putting it on Craigslist and you're thinking about selling it for $20,000, you're not really thinking about $20,000. You're really thinking about the $10,000 that you're going to make at the end of the sale and what you are going to do with that $10,000. So that's what's most important. And also, you guys are going to see how all this comes full circle later on. So you want to figure out what's net in their pocket. So instead of $400,000, I want to see after the mortgage, okay, after, realtor fees, after closing costs, after paying off any liens, like what is the net number in your pocket? Let's say this house is worth 400, but let's really figure out, if you did put it on the market for 400, what are you looking to walk away with? 100 grand? All right, cool. That makes a lot of sense. So now that we know that, next thing we need to know is why. Why do they need this $100,000? What do they plan on doing with it? Are they moving out of state? Are they buying another house? Are they building a business? Like, what are they doing with this $100,000? Why do they need this so bad? Okay. I was in a seller appointment one time, and I give this offer, this lady named Bethany. I give the offer to Bethany. She's like, Mike, I can't do $450,000. That was the offer that I gave her. And I'm like, okay, well, let's think about this. What did you say you were going to do after the sale? Like, what were your exact plans? She's like, well, like I told you, I'm buying a house. I want to put 50% down on the house because I cannot afford that big of a mortgage. So I want to put $50,000, 50% down on the house. And I have to put in a special shower in the house because I'm handicapped. So I literally have this whiteboard with me on the appointment. And I'm like, all right, let's break this down. So let's just say you ended up selling this property for 450 to us. After we pay off the mortgage, after you pay off a couple of your bills, you're going to walk away with about $80,000. And then we broke it down. We're like, how much are you going to need for the down payment? She's like, well, I'm just going into a mobile home. So I'm going to need probably about 60 to 70,000 bucks. And I'm like, all right, well, how much is the shower going to cost? She's like, the shower is only going to cost $5,000. I'm like, Bethany, the offer that I'm giving you solves your problem. You're getting more than enough money to get what you need to get done. And once she realized that, she's like, oh, wow, okay. And I'm like, listen, Bethany, I don't think I'm going to be able to come up enough. I'm going to have to go crunch some numbers. But if I can come up just a little bit more, are you ready to rock and roll? She's like, yeah. I ended up coming up like another couple grand or something, and we got the deal done because she started to realize what her situation really was. Okay, so that's why the budget step is important. Okay, so number 4, decision. Decision is what is justifying them making a decision. Okay, so I want to know what in the world is going to justify you making this decision. Up here, if we think about this situation, what was going to justify Bethany's decision-making process was her getting her grandson over to another property with her so that the grandson could take care of her, and her having enough money to put 50% down plus the $5,000 towards the shower. That was like the biggest thing that was justifying, right? So a good question to ask is like, what problems are going to be solved? And you guys are going to see why this is important here in a couple of steps. So what's justifying you making a decision? Like, what problems are going to be solved here? They're going to be like, oh, well, I'm going to be able to bring my grandson over to the property. I'm going to have enough money for the shower, for the down payment. And yeah, that's going to solidify me doing a deal. Like, okay, cool. Well, who else do you need to talk to? So decision is what and who. So I want to figure out the decision makers, and I want to figure out the what. If you guys are talking to sellers, I guarantee, and you guys can probably put in the chat here, who has talked to a seller before, given an offer, and then them telling you, oh, I'm sorry, I got to go talk to my wife about it. Doesn't even need to be in wholesaling. It could be in any type of sales. I can imagine that is everybody in the Zoom. At some point, somebody told you, yes, yep, absolutely. So literally, you can avoid all this just by figuring out earlier on. So here's what I'm going to introduce to you guys. I'm going to introduce homework and follow-up in this step, okay? So I got to find out who the decision makers are and how they're making those decisions and whatever. If they say, hey, I got to go talk to my wife, I'm doing a couple different things. One, digging deeper to see if that's really a thing or is that an objection, right? Does the wife really need to be making the decision? Do you really need to have her like run this by her, or are you just BSing me? Okay, so I'm going to do a couple things to figure that out. Once I figure out that the wife is actually a real decision maker, I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to either try to get them both on the phone and bring the wife through the 8-step sales process again, or I'm going to give homework. And in that homework, I'm going to tell the seller to, hey, let's schedule a call to get both of us on the phone, or at least the very bare minimum, I want to know your wife's thoughts. So go talk to your wife, see what she thinks about it, and we'll have another conversation. So whenever we get out of a call, because you never go through this 8-step sales process on one call, right? You're never going through the whole entire thing. You're always following up at some point, okay? I think it takes like probably in our business, maybe 10 to 15 touches in order to finally get a deal done. And within those touches, this is exactly what we're doing. We're giving homework and following up on that homework. That's it. So we're giving them homework to go talk to their realtor, to go talk to their wife, to go get their wife on the phone, to go do this, that, and the other. And then the next conversation that we have is, hey, how did the conversation go with your wife? Where I was talking to a seller the other day. She said that an unexpected lien popped up on their property and she has to figure it out and she won't sign anything until she figures that out. So I told her to go figure it out. I gave her homework to, hey, why don't you go figure that thing out? And 2 days after you go figure it out, we'll have another conversation and see if we can get the deal done. So I called her, and when I did the intro, I was saying, hey, so how did it go with the with the lien. You never want to go in with just following up. You see what I mean? You want to go in with a specific reason so that the person's like, oh yeah, this is the guy that, I was talking to about the lien. So always have something to follow up with. That's just a little hint. Okay. So here's the last, we're going to go fast with these. Pain. Okay. I want to get them to feel the pain that they're in. Okay. And this is not to manipulate or anything like that. This is to really get them to understand that they're in a crappy situation and they need to get out of it. This would be very similar to a drug addict, right? Let's just say there's a drug addict in your family that has been on drugs for the past 5 years. There's got to be something at some point when they're going to get healed. There has to be something that goes off in their brain that makes them think, oh my gosh, I'm ruining my family. I am stealing from them. I'm losing all these relationships, right? They have to be aware of that. So if you were talking to like somebody that was trying to heal as a drug addict, maybe bring up, hey, bro, like, how do you think the family feels about this? What have the relationships been like with your family? And then they're like, man, all of a sudden they fall into the pain and they're like, damn, I'm screwing up my family. I gotta do something. So we're asking questions like, damn, how are you holding up? What happens if you don't? Like, what happens if you don't sell? And then they're like, oh my gosh, if I don't sell, then I could potentially face foreclosure and I'm going to be screwed. And then you go into this next thing, which is called fulfillment. So do you guys see why this is laid out the way that it's laid out? It's like we're about to go into fulfillment where we're about to give some offers and stuff like that. We want to get them ready for that. We want to get them to understand that they're in a bad situation and we're here to help them, right? So we go from pain right into fulfillment. And in fulfillment, we're going to mention this pain a little bit. We're going to say, oh my gosh, man, well, listen, I'm so sorry you have this property here that your father passed down to you. And it's been a pain in the butt. I'm so sorry that your father passed away, for one, but for two, you got this thing on your hands that just is bleeding cash because it actually has a mortgage on it that you're in charge of now. Man, that is a tough situation that you're in, right? So I'm recapping. I'm going to recap everything that we went over from pain and motivation. Then I'm going to come in with the close. Okay. This is what I call the pre-close. Okay. So after I recap everything that we've went over so far, I touch on the pain, I touch on the money situation and everything like that. I give them a pre-close and I say, hey, what if we could come in and we could take care of the situation so that you no longer have to have this property on your hands that's bleeding cash every single month. We could get you the $50,000 that you need in your pocket so that you can go do this, that, and the other. Your wife is on board and everything is all set. What if we could do something like that? And I get them to close themselves and they'd say, yes, that's amazing. I'd love to do that. Let's go. Let's do it. Okay. So I get them to pretty much close themselves and they're like, yes. I'm like, all right, well, I got to back up just a little bit. I'm going to go into the urgency step right now. You guys ever had a seller that you were talking to and you're like, dang, I need this seller to sign this contract right now, but I don't want to sound too hungry for the deal. Like, I don't want to sound like I'm overwhelming the seller. I don't want to sound like I am wanting the deal more than them or anything like that, but I still need them to sign the contract immediately. Okay. This is how we do it. One of the major things that causes somebody to buy something is a couple different things. There's two major things. There's one, problem is solved. So let's just say I'm thirsty. I'm going to go buy a cup of water. I'm going to go buy a bottle of water because I need water. I'm thirsty, right? That's something that's going to cause you a problem that's boom solved. But then the second thing, and that's the fear of missing out. I can imagine you guys have probably been sold on a course before. You guys probably been sold on an event before, and they had said something along the lines of like, hey, this is only going to be available for the next 2 days. If you don't book in 2 days, the price goes up $15,000. And you're like, oh my gosh, that's like 5 times more as much as it's going to be right now. I got to sign up right now. That's the fear of missing out, right? So we do both of these things in the urgency step. So we're looking at the urgency step from a standpoint of like, hey, well, yes, I know that this would solve your problem, but I'm not too sure if I'm going to get this thing done for you. I'm going to try to accomplish everything that we just talked about, right? And I'm going to try to get you the money. I'm going to try to make sure that we close in 30 days so you don't get foreclosed on. I'm going to try to get this thing done for you. But here's the deal. What I have to do is I have to go back and I have to crunch some numbers, okay? And I have to essentially qualify this property as one that we are going to pursue, okay? Now I go through a whole entire process to do this. We talk to the team about it. If you have a team, if it's just you, you could just say I have. Here's one of the things that I didn't like about a lot of the 8-step sales process before. We used to tell little white lies, especially in steps like this, and I don't like that. I don't like the little white lies that people tell. So we're not lying through this whole entire process. We're just simply telling them, hey, I got to go back and I got to crunch some numbers. I got to make sure that we're doing our due diligence and we can actually solve your problem. Okay. Now here's the deal. So I got to make sure I got to crunch my numbers. I'm going to say this thing that I could potentially do. So you're pulling away a little bit. You're not saying, hey, yes, I'm super hungry to get the deal done. Okay. So you're pulling away. That's one of the major things. That's part of the FOMO, right? Remember the FOMO I was talking about? Once you pull away and you say, hey, I'm not too sure if I can get this thing done for you. I'm going to try my absolute best to get it done. But I'm going to try to get it done for you. And I'm going to make sure that I try to get the best numbers for you. Now, here's what we call the upfront contract. Okay. After you have done this, after you have created a storm of FOMO, right? You go in and you say, if I can do all this, are you ready to move forward today? And you get them to verbally agree. Yes, I'm ready to move forward today. Okay. I just want to be sure because I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go to war for you. I'm going to go to bat for you and I'm going to crunch some numbers as much as I can. I'm going to talk to my partners as much as I can to make sure that we can come up. But here's the deal. We're professionals. We're doing a certain amount of deals every single month. And I just need to know. I can't be caught up with a no. Okay. I can't be stuck here thinking, hey, is this a maybe? Is this a no? Is this a yes? So you got to pretty much say, hey, you can completely tell me no. And that's fine. The thing that I can't deal with is a maybe. Okay. So I need to know if this is something that you're going to do so I can bring it back to the team and make sure that we actually have a deal done here. If not, no worries. I can give you a call back in about a week or so whenever you're ready. But before I go ahead and crunch the numbers and potentially put this deal on the whiteboard, I just need to know that you're ready to go. Okay. And if they tell you no, then you got to go back to your buckets. Okay. And you got to figure out what the heck is going on. And you might have to go fill up the decision bucket. You might have to go give them homework and follow up again. So you don't give the offer yet until all these steps are completed. Once they have verbally agreed, yes, I am ready to go today. That's when you go back to step number 8 and you negotiate and you close. Okay. So once you go, you get the upfront contract, they tell you yes, you say, hey, well, here's what I'm going to do. You can either put them on pause or give them a call back later. And you just say, I'm going to go back. If you have a team that you have to talk to, like my team actually has to talk to me. They never they never sign any contracts or send out any contracts unless it's approved by me. So they utilize me in this step. They're like, hey, I got to go qualify this with Mike and get an offer number for you. But I can't bring it to Mike unless it's something that you're actually willing to do like right now, because he's a busy guy. He's got a lot going on. He's not just going to be caught up with a maybe. Okay. So that's how they create that urgency, right? And that sort of FOMO. This could be you going and crunching the numbers yourself, depending on whatever your situation is. Just tweak this process to pertain to your situation and don't lie to the seller. That's it. Never tell these white lies. There's no need to do it. Just get better at sales and you'll do good business. So then you come in and you say, hey, good news. I tried my absolute best and I went to war for you. I was crunching numbers like crazy. I was combating with my partner to get him to come up. I was combating with my boss to get him to come up. And I really tried my best. And the actual good news is that we got qualified for this deal to do the deal. And I was kind of weary about it in the beginning. But we could potentially do this deal. Now, is there anything before I go ahead and give the offer? Was there anything stopping us from doing the deal today? All right, cool. No, let's do it. Well, with that being said, we come back to fulfillment. We recap again. We're able to come in and solve all the problems that you have. We're able to come in and stop the foreclosure, close in 30 days, do whatever. And your offer is $100,000 or whatever it is. And then simply, once you say the number, you shut up and you let them talk. They're going to tell you, nah, that doesn't work. By the way, in this step, you want them to tell you no. If they tell you yes, and that means you did not negotiate enough. Okay. So you want them to tell you no in the offer. Once they tell you no, you go back. You never negotiate live, meaning you're never saying, well, where do you have to be? What if we can do 110K? Would you do that? What if we can do 115K? No, that's not it. We're going back to them. We're saying, hey, well, I know 100K doesn't work. Listen, I can't go back to Mike many times. What's your absolutely lowest number? And they tell you 110. And you're like, all right, cool. I'm going to go back to Mike. I'm going to try to get 110 approved. If I can, another upfront contract. Are you ready to move forward? Boom. And you do that until you close the deal. Then you bring them through the contract and you lock it in. Okay. I tried to go through that as fast as I can. I apologize if it was too fast. Let me know if anybody has any questions.
Mike, that was awesome, brother. Gold nuggets. I'm glad you got the whiteboard, and we're going to have this recorded for everybody. Again, Mike, you're saying that you've got the 8 points, but you'll never. It's always a process, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's sequential. Ideally, taking them to, like anything else. I don't know like anything else, but we want multiple touches. We want multiple conversations, and as we're having more and more conversations to go through the process, ideally, we're building a better connection or building better rapport. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm. 100%.
And there's no real rule of how many of the steps you would go through in one process, but just that you wouldn't do all of them in one call, correct?
Yeah. I mean, there actually have been times where I've brought a seller through this whole entire process in one call.
Wow.
Not going to say that it's impossible, but the majority of times, bro, when you're just randomly calling somebody that was generated from a virtual assistant that is like just about ready to sell, they're going to need to do some things at some point, whether it's going to talk to their wife or going to figure out what their mortgage balance is or talking to a realtor or doing whatever. The majority of the time, they're going to have to do something like that. A lot of the times when you're doing like very hot leads that are like hot and ready, like PPC leads or direct mail, people that are inbound, you can bring them through the 8-step sales process and close right away. But the leads that we usually generate, they're like in between both medium and super hot. So it all depends on the lead itself.
Of course, by the time these get to you, you've got your VAs that are making calls. They're bringing these leads to you guys. So there's some pre-qualification process ideally before these actually even get to you. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And is there any time period? I mean, from beginning to end, as you said, it's not the standard, but you've gone through all processes in one call. But is more often than not, is it not so much number of calls, but I mean days in between each call is like a week, 2 weeks? What does that?
This is a really good question. So that depends on the homework with the seller, right? But usually how we do follow up is we ask them, let's just say we're stuck in a situation where we don't know when to follow up with the seller, right? We ask them maybe, when do you want me to follow up? They say a week. We cut that in half to a half a week, right? Whatever number they say, we cut it in half. If it's a month, we follow up in 2 weeks. You see what I mean? But the majority of the time when we're given follow-up, it is kind of very specific. Like for that lady I was talking about, she needed to go and talk to the town about a lien, and she was doing it the next day. So I set a specific time when I was going to call her back. I was like, okay, so when are you going to call the town? She's like, oh, 10 a.m. I'm like, all right, how about I give you a shout later on in the afternoon tomorrow? And she's like, yeah, that works. So I have a set time where I'm calling her. You know what I mean? Other times when it's a little bit more vague and maybe they just need a little bit more time or whatever, I get the time from them. So they tell me 2 weeks, I cut it in half and make that a week. Make sense?
Sounds great. Now, when you're doing these particular projects that you're doing, are they all over the country or are they predominantly in your local area?
The majority of our deals we do in New England. So Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and Connecticut is like the main markets that we operate in. We will do deals outside of our markets sometimes. We're trying to get away from that and just pertain to our market. But yeah, the majority of our deals come from New England. Here's what ends up happening, JJ. I know so many people like nationwide doing the business, and we also have a joint venture department. So people will send us leads through that department that are generating leads with their own virtual assistants or their own door knocking or whatever they're doing to generate leads. And they'll send those leads to us. And those leads kind of come in nationwide, but we're trying to make sure that those leads are just coming in from New England, because that's where we have the base. I recommend people really honing in on a specific market, whether it's, 2 or 3 states or something, and really building a presence and a brand in that market and doing the thing there and building your beast there. It's very hard to establish a good system and process and a good brand nationwide. Like, how the heck are you going to do deals nationwide and have one system for transaction coordinating when you have like 25 different title companies that you're using? Like, for me, my attorney does deals in Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So I use the same attorney for every single deal, and it's a very smooth process. We get one locked up, boom, we send an email over to her with the transaction coordinator, and it's just like a much easier process rather than me getting a deal locked up in Tennessee. Now I got to go find partners in Tennessee. I got to go find a title company in Tennessee. I got to go find everything in Tennessee. You see what I mean? It's much easier to just hone in on a specific local place.
Fantastic. That's a great answer. My other question was going to be, we've got Mark with a question, but before I get there, obviously part of the benefit of staying local is you can have you are boots on the ground. It's easier to maintain visibility of your projects. How much more challenging is it, say, if someone is in, like me, I'm in California, and if someone is in an area that's not great for investing, maybe the buy-in's too high, the return's too low, they want to go to another market that's more maybe has a lower buy-in and a high return of investment.
Mm-hmm.
Would you recommend against that to those people and stay in?
No, I would recommend doing deals where it makes sense for you. I love doing deals in my backyard. I love going to the projects. I love just being here in my own backyard where I can host meetups and be like belly to belly with people. That's why I love doing it here. What I meant by like honing in on, like not doing it virtual, like nationwide wholesaling, I guess is what I was saying. It's hard to scale a nationwide wholesaling business when you have a bunch of different vendors. But to your point, JJ, if you live in a rural area that has like 2,000 people in the city, then you're kind of forced to go to a different market. So if I was in a situation where I was in a rural area and there was like no deals, there's no activity in my area, I would probably pick a market that makes more sense to me. Maybe it's a market that I'm familiar with. Maybe I used to live there before. Maybe I want to live there. Maybe I really like how the city's growing, or maybe I know a lot of people in that area, or whatever. But pick a specific zone to work in rather than trying to work like 10 different markets. Does that make sense? So if you're going to do virtual wholesaling, I'm not saying that you can't. It's a very good idea. If your market stinks and there's no deals in there, obviously you should probably go to a virtual market. Now, that's not to say that you can't do deals in any market, because you pretty much can. Like, people are crushing it in California, but a lot of people say that it's hard. People are crushing it in Boston, but a lot of people say that it's hard and it's a hard entry and stuff, but you could do it. I would just recommend honing in on a couple different markets, like maybe 3 cities, absolute max. But I mean, 3 states, absolute max.
Mr. Mark Presswood, you are on with Mike Gomes. What's your question?
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. You mentioned that you're doing like a couple of different callings. You're doing lead generation and the follow up on the same day.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then a lot of people they hate cold calling. So like, how do you get these people in state? You know, what do you think you could recommend for the people to get in state for these calls and be prepared for the no's that they're going to receive and stuff like that and the challenges?
That's a really good question, dude. You know how many times I get told no every day. The goal is to get told no, because as you get told no, you get closer to the yes, right? So it's just a mindset shift that you got to have, especially in the beginning, right? I never generated my own leads. I always had a virtual assistant doing that. I've been blessed in that sense. So in the beginning, it was my VA named Karen. She came on the team and she like pretty much helped me grow my business. She's amazing, still with me today. She generated all the leads and I was in charge of following up with all the leads and closing all the leads. Dude, I got told no so many times just from the leads that were just generated. But here's what happens. You start building like calluses over your brain for that. And you start like developing this weird thing where it's like, all right, it doesn't even affect me anymore. If I get told no, I'm just like, all right, it wasn't the seller for me. If I get cursed out at, it's just like, all right, God bless that person. Like, I'm sorry you're going through that today. You see what I mean? So that's just like a mindset shift. Yeah, that would be my answer to that.
Yeah, my mentor always says that, hey, you're going, just like a little prayer or whatever, like you're going to this call to actually help these people and solve their problems and things like that to bring great energy to the call and the start.
Yes, bro. That is so good. We start every day off with a morning prayer. And that's what it's all about, bro. Like the morning prayer is all about just asking for guidance, like bless these people that we're talking to, all that type of stuff. So it's so good.
And what you gave away on the whiteboard is many mentors would charge a couple $1,000 for at least just right here on this on this call right here today, my friend.
I know. Well, this is JJ's people, bro. I gotta this is my guy, man.
Massive value, brother.
JJ is my guy. I'm gonna give you guys also a PDF. Now, remember I said I had this 8-step sales process built out kind of before I switched it to, where there's no white lies. So this one kind of isn't the full one. I got to redo another one, but I'm going to give you guys a PDF. The only thing that I'd really change in this is the urgency step, but I'm going to drop that in here right now.
I mean, you do have to take the call through emotional scale. I mean, my mentor talks about that too. Otherwise, you won't get a solid connection and stuff. So you're doing it absolutely correctly.
100%, bro. I remember I go back to my YouTube channel sometimes in my previous videos, like from when I first started, and I just cringe. I'm like, gosh, that's so bad. But I had to start somewhere, bro. I remember before I even started my YouTube channel, I used to just record myself. I did this with my seller calls too, but I would physically record myself for seller calls and my YouTube channel, and I wouldn't even post it. I would just simply watch it, right? For both my YouTube and my seller calls. And then here's what I would do. Every night I would go to my wife, and if I had a seller call to go over, would watch it together. If it was a YouTube video, would watch it together and would analyze like what the heck I was doing good, what I was doing bad.
Veronica, you are on with Mike Gomes. What's your question?
Hi, Mike. How are
Hey,
you?
Veronica. I'm doing good. How about you?
Good. Thank you. This was great information. I'm glad I jumped in here. Unfortunately, I jumped in a little late, so I apologize if I missed this. Did you talk about how long you were cold calling before you started using VAs?
For me personally, I never cold called. So for the first like 7 months before I got my first deal, I was like trying to send out mailers. I was trying to get on the radio for those type of ads. Just nothing was really working. And then finally I get on Facebook one day and I'm like, yo, I've been seeing this thing on YouTube where people are generating leads through VAs. Does anybody know of a VA? And somebody just shot me a comment. I ended up going on some call with a VA agency and I hired the virtual assistant. But like I was telling JJ in the beginning, while I was starting my wholesaling business, I had a couple side hustles that I needed to get rid of, that I need to get out of. And essentially I was trying to take the money from that, dump it into the wholesaling business and like get rid of those side hustles essentially. And that's what I did. But I was kind of blessed in that sense. Not a lot of people can start off with VAs, or they might not have the budget for VAs, which is completely fine. So what I would recommend people doing is, if they absolutely have to cold call, I would not recommend cold calling if you do not have to. So this is something that I just posted a post on Instagram today. One of the things when you're starting out a business, especially the wholesaling business, is you're going to want 6 months worth of expenses and 6 months worth of work in order for you to start actually seeing success, right? And this is with some guidance too. This is with a mentor that knows what the heck they're doing, that's giving you the sauce on how to actually do it, not just YouTube videos. So if, let's just say, a VA is going to cost you $1,000 a month, you're going to want to have budgeted $6,000 in order to finally get it. So here's the deal, Veronica. I think this is more of just a mindset thing. I have a riskier mindset than most people. I think a lot of people actually have access to $6,000. Now, VAs, if you're going to have one VA generating you leads, you're probably going to need $1,500 a month with all the softwares and stuff, which ends up being $9,000. But I truly believe that people have, if they don't have it in their bank account, I think they have the resources to go get $9,000. Like, I can go find somebody. If somebody truly believes in me in building a business, and I say, hey, can I borrow $9,000? I'm about to start this business. I'll pay you back within the next year. Like, there's somebody out there that is going to do this business with you. So I highly recommend trying to find out a way not to generate your own leads, because they're very simple conversations. Like I was saying in the beginning, they're like a 2 or 3 minute conversation. It's, hey, are you interested in selling? Why would you ever sell? How much do you want? When do you want to sell? Boom, on to the next one. And the VAs are just like hammering thousands of dials a day, having that same conversation. And they only generate like 3 to 5 leads a day a piece, which is actually really high for most VAs. But we shouldn't be spending all of our time doing that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
We should have somebody else doing that. But in the event, absolutely worst case scenario, you have to be the one cold calling, then you're probably going to want to put like 2 or 3 months straight into cold calling. Actually, here's what I would do. If I was the one cold calling, I would focus all my time and energy on generating the leads, not focusing on closing and following up. I would simply just be the one generating the leads. And then I would find somebody that knows what they're doing, and send them the lead and squat up with them on the lead. You know what I mean? That way you could focus on building the pipeline, because that's what really matters. The pipeline is what gets you the money. So you take that pipeline, start giving it to somebody who can close. Boom, they close a deal. Now, instead of you waiting 5 or 6 months to get a deal, you now have a deal in 2 months, and you have $10,000 that you made from that deal, and you can now go get a virtual assistant. You see what I mean? So I'd probably do that.
Okay. That's good. And you've only trained the VAs on the 4 pillars situation, and then you do all these 8 steps yourself?
Yep. So for me personally, I have sales reps that do the 8-step sales process and lock up the contracts and stuff. I'm more here to just like oversee them and give them advice and stuff like that. But the VAs are the ones that just have the 4 pillar type of conversation. Right. And I'll put that in the chat as well. I put a cold calling script in there.
So these 8 steps, you have another person that does that?
Yep.
Okay. And are they VAs, or are they here local?
Nope, they're actually local. They're in the state.
Okay. Awesome. Wonderful. And I don't know if you remember, I just have to ask you, because I was on a nightly dial with you one time, and we went over like a low equity list with low interest rates, and you made a call that night.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Did you close that? I'm so curious.
So actually, it's funny. I've been following up with that lead, because that was actually a property that like sparked me and my wife's interest to move into.
Right. I remember you saying that.
Here's what happens with this lead. For everybody listening, I'll go very quick. I get on a call with Veronica, and she's explaining to me her business model, and it's pretty much going after low equity properties that are on the market, potential subject to type of deals. And I'm like, hey, would it be cool if I just did it in real time for everybody right now? And everybody's like, yeah. So I go pull a list. I call the first person, And the first person that I called was like, yeah, I just took the listing down because the agent stunk. I bought the house back like 2 years ago for 600 grand. I had it listed at 650. It didn't sell. I think it was because the realtor stunk, but I don't really know. But the deal is I'm in the Army and I'm getting sent out of state it was like in 2 months, and I have to sell the property. But here's the deal. I understood that he had no equity. Like, he bought the house for 600 grand. He had it on the market for 650. If he sold it at that, he would break even, right? Or it'd come out of pocket. So I kept following up with him. He ended up putting that property on the market, Veronica. He took the advice that I gave him. I said, hey, your best bet is to just go on the market again, try to test the market, see if that works. If you get a buyer at 650, great. You're good to go and you can wash your hands clean. He did that. And then I contacted the realtor. He was like, hey, just talk to my realtor from here on out. Contacted the realtor to find out this guy actually owes $54,000 in arrears, and he owes $638,000 on the mortgage. I just got that information yesterday, which kind of like smokes our deal a little bit, but we're going to try to help him. But pretty much the realtor came to me yesterday and said, hey, you are literally our only option because it's not trading on the market, just like I said. So which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm working with an agent right now with a similar situation. I'm trying to help the seller sell it, and the agent get paid. But I thought of you when I saw you. I'm like, it's the guy, because I don't think you had your name on that Zoom.
Oh yeah, that's great.
But I thought of that deal just now. So I hope you get it. Cool. That would be great.
That would be so cool. I can't wait to talk about it on the Nightly Dial.
Follow up on that just a little bit. There was a question in the chat by Mark, who's on earlier. Are your VAs in the Philippines?
Yes, sir.
Cynthia Spencer, you are on with Mike Gomes. What's your question?
I wanted to ask you, what are some of your favorite books, either in real estate or motivational? Because I think it's so important, not just in real estate, but when we're going in life, we all go through so difficult things. And I love, at the same time that I'm educating myself in real estate, reading something else that will help me.
Favorite book of all time? You guys ready?
Yes.
It's called The Bible.
Okay. Thank you.
My favorite. Honestly, I would be lying and I wouldn't be telling my truth if I did not say that. Like, everything that I live by is in that book. That has been the whole game changer for me here in the past like year or two. But as far as business book goes, one of the major books that changed my entrepreneurship trajectory was Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. That was one of the major books I read. For sales, I would say You Can't Teach a Kid to Ride a Bike at a Seminar. That was one of the major ones. That's by a guy named Sandler. I also like Sell or Be Sold by Grant Cardone. That's a good one. As far as just like business in general, Who Not How is a really good one.
Mark, you are on with Mike Gomes. What's your question?
Well, this might be a little big one. You're using a CRM, right? Some calling tools or whatever, maybe for the people out there. What are you working with tools wise?
So for CRM, we use RE Simply. For our dialer, we use Batch Dialer. For generating leads with texting, we use Batch Leads. For our lists, we use PropStream to pull the data. And then to skip trace, I have a guy who pretty much like does his stuff in-house, and he gives us a really good price. And it's good stuff. If you guys need a connection for a skip trace guy, just give me a call. All you'll do is you'll like send him an email, and then he'll send you an invoice and stuff like that. It's not like a software that's out there.
Yeah, I love that. Skip tracing is one of our challenges, and the other one is the A2P verification that a lot of my lines got all slammed because of the new requirements and stuff that just came out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think we're back online with all that, hopefully.
Yep, it's getting tricky, bro.
Mike, we got a question in the chat here, and for those of us in sub 2 are familiar with this, but those that aren't sub 2 might not be familiar with this. For those that are watching on YouTube, would you like to touch on this? Maybe explain a little bit. Someone asked, did you say there was a nightly dial meetup? Would you like to explain what the nightly dial is for those that might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so in Pace's mentorship, Pace has it's insane the amount of value this guy gives out. But there's a Zoom like every single hour. But 3 times a week, there's something called the nightly dial. And in the nightly dial, people like myself host it, and we will coach people through live seller calls. So Pace generates leads for free. Like he's the one that pays for them and gives them to us for free. We then give them to the students in the mentorship. They call the seller and they go through the whole entire thing. They get off the phone and we give them some advice on what they did good, what they could have done a little bit better. And that's what the nightly dial is about. I coach one of the Zooms every single Friday in that mentorship.
That's amazing. It's amazing what Pace does and what you do, and some of the phenomenal people that we have in our Sub-2 community. We're going to wrap up. I want to thank you so much for joining us today. We had some great questions. You have wonderful content, some great answers. Want to ask you 2 things before we wrap up. If people want to follow up with you, what's the best way to do so? Is it your MySpace page? Is it your TikTok? Yeah. What's your favorite way for people to reach out to you? What's your preferred way?
If they went on my MySpace page, they'd probably hear a song from like Soulja Boy or something.
There you go.
I used to go on MySpace and there was songs that you had on your profile. It would probably be like Soulja Boy, Kiss Me Through the Phone or something. But anyways, you can connect with me right here at the Mike Gomes on Instagram. It's also my YouTube, but I would suggest just going on my Instagram. That's the best way I communicate if you wanted to communicate with me.
My last question would be, my group's a networking group, and I'm always talking about networking. And I think sometimes because I talk about it so much, I become a talking head. But from yourself, someone who's obviously not only successful, you've become successful, you work really hard, you're highly respected in a very powerful community being Sub-2. Each real estate education platform has a Facebook page for its community. Mm-hmm. We have new investors and experienced investors coming to social media to be a part of these Facebook communities to interact and build their business. As these investors are coming to social media, coming to Facebook, the new investors, as well as the experienced investors, what do you feel is the importance of networking and perhaps joining a group like mine to contribute to the success of these new and experienced real estate investors?
Oh my gosh, dude, I had somebody DM me the other day, an 18-year-old kid. Okay. He just got out of high school and he was super confused on whether or not he wanted to go to college, but it wasn't that he was confused about whether or not he wanted to go to college. He didn't want to go to college. He was just confused on how to feel about it and what he should do next. Right. So he DMs me this and I'm like, dang, I really need to talk to this guy. So I'm like, you know what? Why don't you come on my Q&A that I host every Tuesday? So he came on to the Q&A. I just give him some really good advice on, what to do if he's pursuing real estate and stuff about college. And I told him my testimony and all that type of stuff. But then here's what happens. He ends up connecting with somebody in my network, in my community. Okay. This is a kid that's 18 years old, connects with somebody in my community and starts generating leads like the next day. Okay. 2 weeks later, I'm on another Q&A with my students. The same dude that he reached out to was asking me to call a seller for him. And I'm like, hey, bro, where'd you get the lead? And he's like, Owen. Owen's an 18-year-old kid. I'm like, wait, Nick is in here. Nick is my student. Nick is like, kid is goated. So kid ends up contacting Nick. Nick brings the lead to me. And I'm like, where'd you get the lead from? He's like, Owen. Dude, Owen is 18 years old and he is generating leads, taking action just because he ended up networking with a couple people. And now here's the coolest part, JJ. Nick brings a lead to us that was generated by Owen. And we are now doing a deal that he'll make thousands of dollars on here in the next month or so. Wow. Just simply by him. This is literally the conversation that I had earlier, where if I was just cold calling, I would just send my leads to somebody that knew what the heck they're doing. He just started. This was a month ago. Just from him connecting into a community, he plugged himself in a couple ways. Boom, kid's gonna make thousands of dollars. Can you guys imagine? I couldn't imagine, bro, getting out of college. Getting out of high school, I was so broke. If I got like $5,000, $10,000, it would have been over. Right? That's something that changes his life. But that's the power of networking.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Again, guys, if you're on the call right now, if you're watching on YouTube, please like Mike's video. Please like our presentation. Please put something in the notes. If you guys are on the call right now, please like whatever videos we have. It really helps our channel. Like all the guest speakers' videos. Please like the product we're putting out, but especially go back if you're watching Mike's video right now. Please like the presentation. Please put in the comments what your takeaways were, what you found really important, really impactful from the content that Mike shared today. Again, the best way to reach Mike's going to be through his Instagram page, DM through Instagram. If you want to connect with me, jump into my network, pick up my tips and tricks on networking, go to my website, jjzizian.com, and click the register now button. We'll get you connected, get you into the networking group. And, look for more videos, guys, coming up on Flip Side Up with JJ. More great speakers like Mike Gomes. Mike, I thank you so much for joining us, my friend. Gold nuggets rain from the sky. You always share, you always give. And, I look forward to being in a place to give back to you as you've given back to my community. Highly, highly respected.
Yes, sir, bro. Appreciate you so much.
So I guess, Mike, we'll see you back another time. And if anything else, we'll see everybody on coming back on another video, whether it's yours or mine, right? We'll see you guys all soon. Please join us again.
Let's go. Thank you, everybody.